Hello everyone, I'm Erwin Denissen and I'm excited to share with you how I created a font editor using Delphi. My journey with Delphi began back in 1995 during an internship as part of my studies. I developed an interactive multimedia system using the first version of Delphi. I already had some experience with Object Pascal, so working with Delphi was a fantastic experience for me. In 1997, during my final internship, I took it on a challenge of developing a font editor using Delphi. This project eventually became Font Creator, and over the years I continued to improve and expand it as I progressed my career. For a long time, Font Creator was only available for Windows, but I'm thrilled to announce that I've recently implemented a version that runs on Mac. Creating the Mac version, of course using the FMX framework, brought its own set of challenges. But when you consider that I spent 25 years developing the Windows version, taking just 2 years to build the Mac version is quite an achievement. I aimed to use as many standard components as possible, but I ended up using some third-party components as well. Additionally, I made a few modifications to a limited number of standard FMX units to achieve specific functionalities. Font Creator for Mac is currently in the beta phase, with the official release planned next month. So stay tuned, go visit my website and download and try the software if you like. When I decided to build a Mac version 2 years ago, I explored the possibility of adding localization. However, with TLang deprecated and no straightforward solutions available, I had to put this feature on hold. About a month ago, I revisited the idea and after some research and development realized there still wasn't an out-of-the-box solution. So I developed a custom language manager. As a result, the Mac Edition's user interface is now available in over 10 languages. This feature may also be added to the Windows version in the future. I added support for light and dark themes, partly based on a blog post from Ian Barker. Thank you for making all those great blog posts, they really help. I almost forgot to say that the glyph editing pane box was already implemented, as I also use FMX based code on the Windows edition. I will now demonstrate Font Creator, starting with the Windows version. After that I'll showcase the beta version of the Mac edition. Although it's not intended for release, I also demonstrate how the Mac version runs on Windows, as that's been my primary platform for testing. You'll notice some differences between the VCL and FMX versions, since not all VCL components are direct equivalent. There are not always direct equivalents in FMX. Thank you for your attention, and I hope you enjoy the demo. Well, let's start with the Windows version. I develop on a high DPI screen, so you will see this slightly smaller than you would expect it to be. This is the main form with the menu, toolbars, dockable panels, and when you open a font, it will open this window, and inside it you can see there will be frames added when I run it. This is how the Windows version starts, with all the menus, the toolbars, all the panels are already available. And then you can either create a new font or open an existing one and edit it to your liking. This is Baanschrift, it's a very known font on Windows. It's a variable font, which means that you can use sliders to change specific axis values, so the glyph outlines will actually change within a specific design space. You can make it the weight, you can make it bolder, or for example with this font you can change the width. The characters are made out of outlines, and those are contours with either lines or segments or a combination of them. You can change the outline, and then you will also see the result within a preview. These variations are actually interpolated, so there are several instances and all the variations in between are calculated based on the master files. It has full undo redo capabilities. A font, especially complex fonts like Arabic or Hebrew, also have a lot of OpenType layout features to make the font work. This example also has a lot of such features, but mainly for Latin. There is a compiler which allows you to edit the OpenType layout features. These features are actually decompiled from the original font. And well, if you ever designed a font, you might be familiar with this. This component uses a code formatting the text. The FMX version currently has not such support. Maybe we can add it in the future, but right now there is no good component available for this. This is not a deal breaker, but well, some things are different compared to the Windows and the Mac edition. There is a font properties panel where you can define your axes, your masters and your instances. This is all exported into the font, so when the font is installed, this will actually be used by either Windows or your Mac or Linux, or well, you can install fonts almost everywhere nowadays. I will now show you the Mac version, and I will run it, as I told you, on Windows, because that's just so more easier to do. And of course, occasionally I test on the Mac as well to confirm that the things actually work the way as intended, because sometimes, well, the Windows and Mac edition do have some differences. This is how the Mac version starts. It starts slightly different because on a Mac it always shows a main menu at the top of your screen, and well, you can either start by making a new font, open a font file, or open an installed font. The open install font will show you all the available fonts on your system. In this case on Windows, so we can open Segui, Bold for example. And we can also, well, open recent Bahnschrift, the same one as we opened in the Windows edition. You will see it will come in two different forms, while the Windows version is still open here. When I open the installed fonts dialog, which almost shows exactly the same as the FMX version. Not sure if you could see it because, well, so on the Mac this menu is always on top. This is the Mac version and this is the Windows version. I'll open GUI bold as well here. And you will see it will just open in another tab. So this is a design decision. Here all the fonts and all the glyphs that you open for editing will be added to a tab bar. While for the Mac version all the fonts will have their own dialog, and when you start editing a glyph it will open a tab. So as I told you before, the component to edit the glyphs is based on the same code and it uses FMX code because it has better rendering capabilities than the good old VCL based graphics module. So because I already implemented this, it's really speed up the development of this part of the program. You can see the code for the glyphs editing. You see some code commented out because, well, there's still some test code inside and some comments. But this is just, well, 1300 lines of code, and all the main code is just shared among the Windows edition and the Mac edition. So if I improve parts of the code for editing these outlines, then when I recompile the Windows and the Mac version, they will both include the same changes. I can show you language support, as I told you. You can instantly change the language and it will adapt to all the forms and labels that are available and marked to support the localization. For example, Dutch, which is my native language. You have to close the options dialog here, and then you can also see that some parts of the user interface, like color, kleur, they have changed. Also other forms like the validation form is now in Dutch. You see this one needs some improvement because I could change that line to support localization as well. On the Mac, when you open a modal form, when you show a modal, you can still make. This is not possible on the Windows, so there are some differences that you have to keep in mind, and which changes the way you sometimes think about how a program should work. So in this case, when you open a modal form, you should disable all these menu items. So on the Mac you will obviously see that you can no longer select them while a modal form is staying on top. You can't test this on Windows because it can't select the main menu right now because, well, you have a modal format up. On the Mac, the main menu is always available. So you can test this on the Mac. I hope to have some time after this pre-recorded video to show you how it shows and works on the Mac version. This is just pre-recorded on Windows. The way I have implemented the language feature is it just runs while running in debug mode. It runs and detects when it's when you open a form, and it sees which components are potential candidates for translation. It will collect them all and put them in one main file, in an XML file, and from there it generates files for all your localizations. So one file for English, one for Dutch, one for French, and one for German, etc. And if you want to include more languages, then you just add another line to tell it should also support another language. And from there it will see if there are already translations available for some parts of the user interface, and all the ones that are still missing will be generated in a separate file for each language, and then you can just do the translations, which is actually pretty easy to do right now because, well, there are a lot of AI tools that will help you with automating that process. This is the demo for now, right? I hope to have some time left for Q&A. I hope you enjoyed it. Thank you for watching, and well.
Whoops, double clicked the go live button. Fantastic demo, and people showing some real love for it as well in the chat. So I'm really pleased about that. And actually, we have Erwin joining us live, who's going to talk some more about it and screen share. Let's just make your screen go on like this. There you go, side by side. Hello, Erwin. How are you? Oh, we can't hear you. Let me just make sure we've muted you.
Okay. Hello.
Now I can hear you. Now I can hear you.
Great. Thank you for having me here.
Yeah, he was chatting in the background. We have a backstage area that has a kind of private chat, and he was saying, I don't know which bits work where, and it's exactly the problem I have. As you can imagine, I have all sorts of cameras and videos and things like that going. I don't know. It's just, life is too complicated once you get to a certain age. Don't you agree? Yeah. So, okay, let me just, I just want to, before we go into your demo, I just want to show you some of the comments, because this was the first thing that Zoe said, which is, this guy's given me goosebumps. Okay, it's spelled goose, kind of in a novel way, but, you know, I don't know whether this translates to other people that are watching, because not all languages use that phrase, but it's where the skin on, you know, on your arms or whatever sticks up, and it's a good thing. It means, wow, it's really cool. And Zoe then went on to say, it feels like all the great things that I've done with Delphi was just gameplay, looking at this font creator project. Well, I think you got a fan there.
Right, yeah, wow. Well, it took me 25 years, so.
Oh, right, really? Okay, well, I wasn't quite sure how long. And it's FireMonkey you've used as well in the project, because that's so you can do the cross-platform stuff. Is that right?
Yes, I initially developed it, well, running on Windows, because, well, I think 27 years ago, 28 years ago, everybody uses a Windows machine. Mac was almost vanished, and well, it was a good thing that Delphi started with Windows, of course. And then I developed the font editor and continued to improve it till I came to the point that, well, the Windows version it's never finished, but anyway, there was a good base, and all the functionality that I wanted to implement was there. And then it was time to move on to the Mac, and I also thought that FireMonkey was mature enough to go that route 2 years ago. So,
yeah, and you know, I always say about programming, a good program is like a work of art, like a painting. You never finish it, you just abandon it. Because I'm sure Leonardo da Vinci and all the rest of it went, you know what, that'll do. Because otherwise you can keep, you know, tweaking this bit here, tweaking there. Eventually you just have to say, I'm going to have to walk away and live with it as it is, and that's fine. I mean, I saw your product, and I forget how it came to my attention. I think someone emailed me and said, "Hey, this is a really good tool," and then we got in touch and talked to you and said, "Hey, we'd like to talk some more about this because it's really good." So you want to do a demo of some other stuff now, is that right? And I did just explain to the audience that are watching. This is Erwin's first time on this platform. And first of all, he did a great demo. Second, he's do something live. And thirdly, he's actually sharing his Mac screen as well. So are you able to share your screen? I hope producer Martha is in the background, because even I'm not sure how you do 3 at once. I think if you share your screen on your Mac, there's like a button that's got a plus on it. You can click on that, and then it says screen share, and then you pick the screen that you want to share, and then I should see it on my preview. Everybody talk amongst yourselves whilst we do this. It should allow you to just share your screen. It's like a plus button, I think, or it might be, I think you can press H. I'm not sure. I'm not sure. Erwin Denissen shared his screen. There you go. Okay, so I think now if I do this, we're going to have you in 2 places. So I'm going to turn your camera off here. I think if you need to turn your camera off on your Windows thing. Okay, cool. And then I'm going to turn my camera off so that I'm not there, but we can still talk. Okay, so you're going to do a demo. Is that how you want to demo it, like that? Have we got it set up properly?
Yeah, this is fine. I'm just not as used to a Mac as I'm used to a Windows machine.
That's exactly the problem I have. Yeah. Okay. All right. So I'll let you drive when you finished. If you just let me know, because with the live demo, you know, I don't know when you're actually coming to an end. But go for it.
Yeah. Well, I have already deployed my Mac version to this Mac, and now I'm starting it. I hope you can see it. It's now in the background. I'm not sure.
Yeah, we can see it fine. Yeah.
Okay. Well, we can start a new font or open an existing one, or see the installed fonts on the Mac. I also showed this in my introduction 20 minutes ago, I think. You can search for fonts, and when you have found one, you can open it and you can start editing it. You see most of the screen is equal to the Windows version, and there are some little changes, but it's mostly the same version. And when you edit a font, let me just open a nice one. This glyph, for example, then you can start panning, zooming. You can't see my hands, but well, I'm using the trackpad, I think that's how it's called. And then you can start editing your glyph outlines to your liking.
Wow, fantastic.
This whole painting area is actually totally reused from the Windows version, because while a couple of years ago I was also working on improving this part on the Windows version, and then I found out that the FireMonkey paint options for DirectX and all other, well, painting options for drawing curves and beiges, lines, contours was way more better with the FMX version, the canvas actually. So I decided to implement that and integrate it into the Windows version.
That's outstanding. Do you use, I did ask this in the chat and we didn't get around to answering it. Do you actually use Skier at all, or do you not use any of the Skier functions?
No, I've looked into them, but since I already implemented a lot of functionality myself, there was no use for me to use it right now. But I've seen some interesting things that I might use in the future.
Yeah. I mean, I'm a big fan of Skier, but used in the right way. I think sometimes people just go crazy, and you know, they. I'm just going to block someone who's spamming our forum there. There you go. Yeah, that's them gone. Yeah, I mean, Skier is very powerful. I think in your case, you're actually reading the font files and decoding them, aren't you? You're not just like loading a font in like most people do in Windows or Mac, but you're actually reading that font format and then handling it like almost like a database of data rather than a font. Is that correct?
Yes, exactly. That's exactly what I do. I decompile the font and I try to maintain as much of the original data as possible. So there's some basic information in the font, like the name of the font, the version, a copyright, a naming field, trademark, the vendor or the designer. With the variable font, you also have access, masters, instances to be able to interpolate between the different outlines of a glyph. And one of the other important parts is the OpenType layout features within a font. Especially for complex scripts like Hebrew and Arabic, this is very important. But as you can see, there are also a lot of OpenType layout features defined in this particular font. And I can also, I've decompiled those and I can put them back into a script. It's a sort of code, but for OpenType fonts, and then you can compile it back into the binary format for your font. So this is all available within the font. It's decompiled.
That's amazing. How did you learn about using this? Because I know my daughter is a graphic designer. And went to do an awful lot of stuff to do with font handling and things like that. You know, that kind of typography theory and all those kind of things. Was it something that you already knew, or did you teach yourself about it? Or, I mean, how did you get to the point where you went, you know what, I'm going to write a font app?
Well, it's a really long story. I'm not sure. I have a little book here. Yeah. Well, I first started writing code when I
this camera, other camera, turn to your right, turn to your right. Keep going. Oh, this way. You'll see. There you go. Oh, it's mirrored, but that's fine.
Because there's a camera on the Mac, not on my Windows.
I know. Yeah, I get it. This is the problem I have sometimes. When I want to point at things, I can't point in the right place.
So one of the things was the Robo Shrift, the Robo font, and you could type this code, and then you had your own font in the end.
Right. Yeah, that's some pretty incredible stuff.
So that was my first coding back in long time ago, and then I started developing first in Pascal, and then in Object Pascal, and then Delphi.
Right. Yeah. I mean, there's so many people that used to use Object Pascal. Well, Turbo Pascal was the one where I think even Elon Musk, when he was asked about which language do you prefer, Elon Musk actually replied to that and said Turbo Pascal. I'm like, wow, we didn't even pay him. The richest guy in the world said Turbo Pascal. But yeah, it was extremely popular back in the day. And of course, we're lucky to stand on the shoulders of that legacy. But the things it can do, even back in those days, and the compiler and the IDE was very basic, but did a good job. But I think, as I said with the chat and all the rest of it, so many people are like blown away by what you've done. Your app is really quite incredible. And like where you're dragging those paths and all the rest of it, I think is extremely clever. It's obvious that you've put so much work into it and effort.
Well, if you're a designer, you can make really nice things. I'm I'm just not that creative, but it's now converted back to contours, to lines and Bezier curves.
That's really quite amazing.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, I'm trying to wrangle my dog. One of my dogs in the background doesn't like slippy floors, okay? And cool, off you go. And my office floor is one of these tiled things, and so she will not walk on it at all. So I have to put there you go. See, now I've got her out of the office, and I can actually go back to being a professional host and not a crazy person who makes weird noises. Yeah, I mean, I have to say, I have a little bit of a kind of inside view on font handling, because years ago, and I mean like 1997 or something like that, I used to work for a software house that did a lot of desktop publishing software and things like that, but they also did these CDs of various pieces of software, and one of the projects I worked on was a font handling piece of software, but all it did was just curate the fonts. So they were ready-made fonts, and what you could do was you could see the previews come up of what the font face looked like, and then if you clicked on it, it would install the font and Windows. And funnily enough, it was written in Delphi. So, and I know it was written in Delphi because I wrote it. But I didn't do anything clever like disassembling the font and working on it. But it basically had like a tiled view that you could, see the previews of the fonts and then click on them and things like that. But it was extremely popular. If you bought a Canon printer back in the 90s, and they started doing laser printers and things like that, a CD came with it of software, and free software, and one of them was the font handling software. So I know that what you're doing is rocket science stuff, so let's put it that way. It's difficult. What you're doing is not easy, and the quality of the craftsmanship that you put into your code, I mean, look at that font there with all those flowers on and things like that. It's absolutely outstanding.
Yeah. This is actually a color font. It's not made by me, but some really creative guy from the Netherlands. And yeah, you can do all kinds of stuff with fonts. But you were talking about a font, a font tool you made. We actually also have a font manager, and because, I've built all the technology to support the rendering and the shaping of the fonts and the text. It's also very unique that the font manager is able to also preview your fonts with the variable font technology, because currently the best tools that can use the variable fonts are actually web browsers. So funny. Desktop applications have less support for variable fonts. Yeah. So
it's funny. I mean, web browsers have influenced our technology so much, really, over the years. And of course, it never occurred to me, of course, that fonts would actually progress a little bit more with the advent of the World Wide Web and font and browsers, web browsers.
Yeah. For example,
When you
you can start testing your font within the web browser. I'm just exporting it right now, and now you have it in your web browser,
right.
and then you can test it the way you want with all the
So
features inside it.
are people able to create their own handwriting fonts and things like that? Because I've seen, a few things along those lines.
Yeah, actually, people used to do that. It was very popular 20 years ago. A lot of people didn't have an iPad; it didn't exist, so they were all well busy on their desktop PC doing stuff. And more actively now, people are more watching or well clicking, buying, and reading. But back in those days, a lot of people made their own custom handwriting fonts. Today there are also handwriting fonts. For example, this one. Um, oh, sorry.
Yeah, I like it.
Without the OpenType shaping, it would look like this. So there
Oh,
is
wow.
built-in OpenType feature support to make sure that it's all connected.
That's very clever. And that's what helps make it look more natural, of course, rather than, a bunch of bitmaps that people plonk on the screen.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's impressive. And I mean, as I say, having a little bit of background about fonts. I mean, I'm a font nerd myself. I love fonts, and I think that typography is something that people should go and learn, because if you're a software developer and you learn a bit about how typography works, things like which fonts can go together. There's a lot of really great websites out there that have pre-matched fonts together. An app like yours can help them also create their own fonts that are completely tuned to what they want. If you want a futuristic font, but you don't like the way an A looks or something like that in a font, then they can go ahead and tweak it. I mean, there are obviously copyright considerations, because some of these font foundries.
There are also a lot of OpenType fonts today, especially meant for the web. So there's still a lot of commercial fonts, and they continue to make wonderful, beautiful, creative fonts that are still bought, because a lot of designers want to use new fonts, not the same fonts. They want to be outstanding, and that's
right. Yeah, unique, basically, to stand out from the crowd. Yeah, and also, I mean, for things like sign writers and also company logos, Embarcadero's main logo is, of course, mainly text. And in fact, when you think about quite a few of them, Tesla is a T, okay, but generally when you get letterheads and PDF documents and things like that, you want there to be an overall look and feel to what you output. And as I said in the introduction, it's not just your app, which is great, but if people go to your website, and actually I'm going to put the QR code out, it's going to obscure part of your site, but you'll be part of your app, but you'll be fine. But if people scan that QR code, and it will take them directly to your website. The thing that stood out for me once I looked at your product was that your website itself is also absolutely gorgeous as well. So it's a good job. I mean, I know a good thing when I see it. I've been a developer for nearly 40 years. In fact, probably 40 years I think now. I'm older than I look. And although most people look at my haircut and realize how old I am, but I see a lot of apps, and obviously in the role as a developer advocate, I deal with developers day in, day out. I meet them at events. I talk to people like yourself when I'm hosting. But I have to say, I was very pleased to see your product, pleased to see your website, because it's an entire package where, I used to be a professional poet back in the day, and we always used to say amongst poets, I know I've had a weird life. I used to be DJ as well at one point, but we we always used to say, if you read someone's poems, you get a picture of the inside of their mind, because poetry is really about expressing what's inside your head into words. Well, you know what? The same is very true of your website there and your code. I think if you read another developer's code, you get a picture of what is going on inside their head. And sometimes not so great picture, because you read someone's code and think, oh no, oh no. But other times you look at it and go, oh wow, and I think, I don't want to big you up too much, because otherwise your head will explode. But I really admire what you've done. I think your website is fantastic. It's gorgeous. I think your app is really well done. I think it's a good showcase for you, but also Embarcadero is a good showcase for us about what can be done. And the fact that you picked FireMonkey, to do the cross-platform version really says a lot, because as you said, you can do a lot more with the paths in FireMonkey. Some developers say, oh no, I prefer VCL and I want to do Windows apps. But actually FireMonkey allows you to do this, which is to create a Mac app, and it works. And it works well. It looks like your app is performant, and all the controls are Mac friendly. They're not, Windows shoehorned together. So I think it's great. It's really good. What did you find any particular challenges with going from Windows apps to a Mac app? What was the thing? Was there do you use a Mac more than a Windows PC, or is Windows PC like your tool of choice?
Actually, I don't even own a Mac. This is not my Mac. But
oh. Yeah, there you go. So yeah, that happens sometimes. Yeah.
So no, I'm a Windows addict, and I still keep thinking like a Windows person, and no, the Mac is not my thing. So right now I'm within the beta phase, and it's very important that my testers give feedback about what is intuitive about the Mac version, because, well, it should not be a Windows program that runs on Mac, but, well, that's my challenge.
I absolutely agree. I think you're right there. It's like when people say, I'm going to take my app, and we've got a presentation later from Bruno Firenz from TMS, and he's going to be demonstrating taking a VCL app and converting it to a web app. But it's the same principle. If you take a Windows desktop app and try and make it into a web app, it's going to look okay in the sense that it looks like a desktop app running in the browser, but that doesn't make it a good web app always. And there are compromises that you have to do. And it's the same thing, like you say, we're taking a Windows app and then making a Mac app. You can't really always make that work without some changes, without some compromise leading towards what can be done with the Mac, because the Mac is a very specific look and feel. And you don't want Mac users thinking, well, this app doesn't work, when in fact it's just that you haven't adopted the Mac way of doing things in certain places. So
there are also challenges on the Windows platform, but on the Mac there are just some different challenges. So it's not really harder, but it's just you can't just make a copy of your software and then think it runs. It's the basics from FMX, and the platform is really amazing, but then you have to fine tune it to make it your own, and that's sometimes challenging, but it's also a lot of fun, and you learn new things. For example, the main menu, all the items should be disabled while you have a modal form, like now. Because right now you can't you can't select anything, so you have to disable them. On a Windows machine, you can't even click on the main menu when you have a modal form. So that's something really
different. A subtle difference, isn't it? But it is an important one. And I think again, it just goes back to the level of attention to detail that you've put into it. I think that and it's even more amazing when you say you don't have your own Mac, because that's absolutely incredible. I mean, is that someone else's Mac, or is that a Mac in cloud or something like that, a cloud-based Mac?
It's a Mac from my girlfriend, actually. So
okay.
I was kind enough to allow me to work on it. But basically,
I tell people this,
I think more than 95% of my development time is spent on Windows, because I develop it there. I can test mainly on Windows, and only some specific things then I need to test, like the menu thing. That's different from the Windows version.
That's incredible. It bears out what I say, which is the same thing. I always say to people, you don't have to have a Mac, but you do need access to one. Because first of all, as you know, in order to actually create the Mac app, you've actually got to get access to a Mac at some point, because that's how Apple make their money. You can't just bundle it and expect it to work. No, you've got to actually use a Mac. But it doesn't have to be your Mac. As long as you've got PA server running on it, you can compile and test that way. But also, as you're doing, you can remote into it and access it that way. So it's very, very useful. We're getting short on time, which is a good thing. I've got a few questions that I'd like to put up. So let me just go through them, because we've got a few people. Right, so Patrick Prematam, who is our Spirit of Delphi Award winner and a very active MVP, says Font Creator works with OpenType, TrueType, Web Open font format, and he also says, can we export letters or fonts as SVG too?
You can export them individually. So you can, for example, select I have to obviously close this one. You can select your contours, and then you can copy and you can paste in the clipboard as SVG right now, and then you can paste it back into any other software that supports SVG. You can copy back. I don't have some other.
No, that's fine. I mean, you've answered the question. The answer is yes, you can. That's pretty incredible. And Terry says he's curious about the use of FMX code for the font editor for both versions. What were the challenges with this? I recall about reading about embedding FMX in VCL or vice versa, but never looked into that. I don't think you do that. I think when I saw your code, it looked like it was a pure FMX app. It wasn't VCL with FMX bolted in or the other way around. It was.
The Mac version is fully FMX, and of course, and the Windows version uses the canvas of the FMX platform to display this this area where you edit your glyphs, and also to show the text here.
Right.
So at specific parts, it is FMX based software that I already integrated into the Windows version, which was beautiful because that speeds up the development of the Mac version, of course.
Yeah, it's amazing. I mean, like I say, I talk to lots of developers, and I see lots of products. I mean, I saw one in Amsterdam that was amazing. The guy was controlling he lived in an apartment block, I think, and he was controlling his house with a little app on his phone, and it was a FireMonkey app, and it was all in 3D. And I said to him, wow, I would have had like a panel of buttons that I could turn lights on and off. But he had Raspberry Pis on each floor of the apartment block, and he was controlling it with REST interface and this really incredible 3D FireMonkey app. And I just, every time I see a developer like yourself and this guy, I'm like, oh, wow. I just think that it bears out what I say. You can do almost anything. There's no reason, people go, oh, I need to use this language. Patrick said it as well, where he's saying Delphi is dead. Nobody uses Delphi. And yet there's, 7,795,000 downloads for one project created in Delphi. So, people do use it, and it's just that it works and keeps working. They focus on the app's functionality, which they should do. It shouldn't matter how it's written. It's about whether it's a good app or not. And in your case, you wrote a brilliant app, and I really admire it. Well, we chatted behind the scenes, and I did say you and I will do this another time. We'll prepare a pre-recorded webinar specifically dedicated to this when you're just about to or have launched your Mac version. And we'd also like to follow that up with a blog post as well, because what you've done is fantastic, Erwin. We're really really blown away by the quality of it. You can see from the comments from people that they're impressed as well. So I appreciate you taking your time and doing a live demo as well. Yeah.
I forgot what I'm doing. I forgot to show the dark theme.
Oh wow. Look at that. See, isn't that great? That's fantastic. What theme are you using there? Are you using custom theme, or is it one of the ready-made themes, or?
This is Impressive Dark, Mac style.
Ah, okay. Yes, that was the one that came out with 12.1. Yeah, I like the Impressive Dark. I have to say, a little insider secret there. I was actually on the panel of people that chose the themes, and that was the one that was the clear winner. So I'm really glad to see you using it, because that makes me feel good that my choice was really awful.
It's really great. There's one thing I did add to the style, because when you use toolbars with specific size, like these are, I think, 16 by 16. If you want to use them 24 by 24, you have to modify your theme, your style.
Okay.
So I added the style for the larger toolbar buttons above, and it's just one time definition of the style, and then you can add them whenever you need them. So that's actually really nice when you get used to it.
Well, I'll pass that on to Alexei, who actually works on that. We subcontract these from Delphi Styles and people like that, and he is the expert at styles. And if there's something that we can change to improve it, I'm sure Alexei will do it, because he's another great developer and also a really good designer as well. He's responsible for all sorts of different bits and bobs. But yeah.
It was just for me something to figure out, because there were no styles 25 years ago, so that's
no, exactly. Well, we had a session yesterday by Dion, who's coming up in a moment, called "Why You Should Stop Using Delphi 7," and styles was probably number one on the list. Which is, I keep saying to people, with the free styles or even the paid versions, you can take your app and lift it up and make it look fantastic, even if you don't have graphic design skills, because someone like Alexei is out there, and he's put the effort in to make these styles look good, and we tweak them. When they're sent to us, we critique them as a group of people that look at them and say, "Well, I don't like this color," or "We don't want the orange one," or something, and so the effort goes in. But he's really great at doing that kind of thing. So, okay, well, I'm gonna have to leave you to it, because we're going to go to the next session. But thank you so much for taking the time out to do a live demo of that. Lots and lots of people saying how amazing you did. There was a question about, did you create every component and library used for this product? And you did actually mention that. Which things you do as well. So.
I developed the way you can change the language. That's a custom language manager I made, because there is no out-of-the-box language component available right now. But this is really working great. And what have I used more? I've used the tree view and the grid components from TMS software.
Yeah, I love TMS stuff. It's great. And actually, another question whilst we're on it, I think, which was, I would be interested to know what percentage of the code had to be solved platform specific. Well, I think you said already that it's actually quite a lot, that you can read the fonts and handle them, but the actual, Mac specific stuff, there was quite a few changes. Yeah.
I had to do a lot of R&D to see what components best suit my needs for the Mac edition, because, well, I have so at specific parts several graphic related usage, which is not the common label and edit boxes. So there were some challenges, and I had, of course, also had to decouple some of the forms and the actual business logic. So I implemented a lot of controllers, which are now used in both the Mac and Windows versions. So I think it's actually one code base, of course, for the black box, for all the data, for the importing, loading, exporting, saving, also for the displaying the fonts. That's all one code base. So it's actually only the visual layer that is.
See, when I tell people this is how Delphi works, they think it's just a sales pitch. They think, oh, it's just Embarcadero saying that. And I said, look, before I worked for Embarcadero, and I've worked for them over a year now, but before I worked for Embarcadero, I was a developer, and I coded with Delphi since Delphi 1. I actually bought Delphi on the day it was released, on the 14th of February. And I know what it can do, and I wasn't making it up. I don't need to lie about the capabilities of the product. When I say mostly you can share, as long as you've written the code correctly, you can share it between the platforms as long as it's not specific to that platform. I mean, there are things to do with cameras and stuff like that between platforms that work differently. Things to do with sharing, for example, share sheets work differently in Windows to the way they do in the Mac, but not immensely different, but quite different. Mm-hmm. But actually, what you're saying bears out what I say, which is, a good proportion of your code will work cross-platform because it's Delphi. It's a language. It's like, when you see two people, it doesn't matter if you speak Dutch or German or French or even Brazilian Portuguese. When you look at code, even if an English person wrote it, the Delphi developer in Brazil or Holland or Netherlands or Germany can understand it because it's a universal language. And that's true of cross-platform development as well, that as long as you write it carefully, it's a universal language even between the platforms. And what you're saying really kind of bears out what I've been saying. So there you go. I'm glad I had you on. So we'll see you again. I have to go to the next session, but we're definitely going to do another session together when you're ready to release the Mac version. And we'll do a blog post about it because, you've built the Sistine Chapel there, and it's something that I personally admire. I'm a developer. I know how to code, but I know good code when I see it. And based on the people in the chat windows and stuff like that, everybody else thinks so as well. I mean, Pete Rios, for example, says, "Incredible, thank you." And sums it up. All right. Well, thanks a lot. We're going to go now to the next session. Speak to you soon, Erwin. Thank you.
Okay. Bye. Thank you.